So we record in case anybody wants to take the time to listen to our meetings. And we are waiting for that recording from the meeting with Rinpoche, but also the meeting before that, and now this meeting. So I said to Jim, whatever you can give me, just give me. So hopefully they'll probably all come in at once, but that's fine. So we are tonight.
I can't hear. Here. I can't hear. I can't hear.
Okay, sorry about that.
Now it's good now. I can hear you
Sorry
now.
about that, Linda. I was talking to you and you didn't hear me. Anyway, we're recording the meeting. We're waiting for recordings from Rinpoche. And Paul just made an excellent point about how he was grabbed by the first two sentences of the chapter, and that sort of informed the way he experienced the chapter. It's even dangerous to focus on enlightenment when you're talking about meditation. I was wondering if he could elaborate on that a little further. So that's where we are.
And I'll just elaborate from what he says here because he basically says expresses it quite well. So it could be quite misleading. So let me go to the previous ones. In fact, in some sense, it is quite dangerous to talk about enlighten the mind in relationship to meditation. It could be quite misleading because it would set up our expectations. And the whole point of the spiritual path is to transcend ambition or struggle. So presenting meditations in terms of how good you could become at it and how exciting it will be once you reach enlightenment seems to be a self-destructive way of presenting the teachings. I mean, and that's one of those just reminders that, um, especially with meditation, is sometimes you're meditating and you're like, it seems like I'm doing it wrong, right? Or it seems like I'm doing it right.
Judgy.
Either way,
Yeah.
right? And that subtle piece between doing it right or doing it wrong, isn't the point. And that and in a in a society like ours and how we're about we want to do things right. I want to hit a golf ball. I want to do all of these things right, and that's where the struggle just for me in all my practice, it's always just reminding myself that it's not about that.
It makes me think of the other book, the Shantideva and the Bodhisattva, because it's not just your meditation. You, as a person, you have to cleanse yourself and be a great person too. And that book really points out that you're really, really, really far away from ever being that pure, to be a Buddha. So it's interesting. Like you can get stuck on that, and you also have to do this too. Clear,
We're seeking the truth. What's their actuality, not some concept or some ideal that we have. That's going away from the true purpose, right? So this chapter's like not just this first part, but like the rest of it. It's just bringing you back to reality, like what's practical, what makes sense. Like even the second part, how like before you start doing something, most of us, we just plan and try to figure out, oh, this is the right way. Am I ready for it? I must do it right, instead of taking action and just starting the work itself. Like we take so much time planning and just we have to get it right. That's not how it should be. The action itself is more important. Like you start the process.
Like that.
Yeah, so like these are very practical things, not just for meditation, just day to day, like your life. What do you do every day?
I didn't think of it that way, but yes.
So yeah, just going away from concepts, just see what it is, just be
Just
in the
be
being
in the moment.
here now. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is quite dangerous to talk about an enlightened mind in relationship to meditation. Well, my takeaway on that is from some of the studies that I've come across is that if you are trying for enlightenment while you're just trying to meditate, you are conceptualizing enlightenment. And if you're conceptualizing enlightenment, you're conceptualizing something that is basically non-conceptual. And so by concentrating with your meditation, by saying, this is what I'm going to meditate for, and I'm going to get that as my goal, it's not going to happen. That's the reason why
you're blocking the truth.
you're blocking what it is by doing it. That's where I think it comes with another point on his dangerousness there. So
That's another take on it. On
And
that particular.
a further thought I have is that it's a reification of one's own ego. You know, I must achieve. I am not achieving. I. And it's also dualism
Yeah, it is.
because, you know, it should be all a part of the flow. And somehow meditation could afford us the possibility of tapping into that realization.
Well,
But we don't know how, and so we just have to.
open meditation can take you right up to the door. If meditation is done right, I mean, like if you're not trying to go for a goal, if you're meditating, sometimes that door will open while you're meditating. And that's one of those experiences. Hey, that happened. And then it usually closes. Where'd it go?
Yeah.
And that's what they taught. That's what he talks about short spurts of enlightenment happening. You know, gee, that happened. I want it again. I want it again. As soon as you say I want it again, it's very hard to get back to again. At least that's the way I understand it.
Well, and he talked in previous chapters
Yeah.
of how it's not a continuous thing, that there are pockets, there are gaps, and it's in those gaps where you're not creating karma.
Yeah.
And it's in those gaps that I suppose if you can.
Yeah. But there are those gaps
I
that
don't know how to articulate it.
sometimes different, your mind can open up a little more
Yeah.
in those gaps, but you can't force those gaps. Those gaps basically have to happen. That's where he'll later on, I think he talks about you, well, this is all about karma, but that's where your teacher, your guru comes in to say, okay, with those gaps. Anyways, I'm not getting carried away.
No, not at all. So the question that prompted this, Janet, was we were talking about, so is there something that stands out to each of us from reading the chapter that we want to, you know, talk about, that we as individuals might want to talk about? Is there a question that jumps out at us? And so that was when our speaker was on. And so we didn't hear Paul's probably said the first two sentences really jumped out at him, which has to do with question one, for example. If you don't see the process of your journey as it is, you won't see any value or any point in the journey, because we don't need a value or a point in the journey, right? I think. Or am I?
Yeah, just cling to anything.
Yeah, we can't attach.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we attach, then we've objectified.
Yeah, that's what's hard, because we're trained to take a goal, find the best way to get to your goal, make this your mission, and just like go all into it with power. But in reality, that brings you more stress and more headache, and things go wrong because of it. And all,
Exactly right. It takes you further away rather
Yeah.
than closer.
and all the teachings are saying to do the opposite. You still, it's not that you discard your goal, but don't become so obsessed. Just take it easy, and then it'll come to you, but in a better way, right? It'll exceed your expectations. That's what that's what I'm getting from it, I think.
And my goal every day is to meditate. And that's hard.
But without expectation.
Well,
right?
just to sit,
Yeah.
just to sit and meditate is really challenging for me. Or it can be. It isn't always, but it can be.
I can share a thought if,
Please.
Rinpoche mentioned a book, another book by Trungpa, uh, Orderly Chaos, which has to do with the mandala principle. And that just reading a little bit of that book has helped me so much with what I've considered to be my path every day as I work with kind of a complex business and also with a family and with other things that are swirling around. And anyway, so my concept for a long time has been that when I do my Nundro first thing in the morning, that my path is to bring the awareness that arises during the Nundro, without thinking you can grasp it and, but whatever, for me, it works to glimpse the sky because from my home, I can see the blue sky it doesn't have to be blue, but things that, whether it's working with the breath, I'll just breathe for a minute. It's so important, a concept to me, to just be simple and to Rinpoche touched last time he was here and talked with this group a week ago, I think it was. He touched on how speed and I think an element of surprise sometimes can knock us off of our awareness, and we can get into problems with others when we're working with others. And one of the things, there's so many things arising as far as I can tell within the wide world of Dharma right now in other sanghas and as well as this one. And so I'm kind of going all over the place because um, in general, I do think that there are people who are very fixated, who have trouble getting loosened up. And then there are people who are all over the place, who are, so the mandala concept for me really fits. And I must confess that I was in a chaotic situation this week, somewhat with my husband being quite ill for a few days and help
Sorry.
my husband, yeah, and helping him. And now he's much, much better and working with a quite a busy time in the business. So all of that was going on. So I'm going to talk no more right now, but the concept of simply bringing awareness into our lives, bringing it into moment by moment, and how that happens for each of us. There's learning to how to work with the breath in the daytime as we move through our lives. I think how to work with our eyes, how to work with our being, our whole being, our whole being, our whole body, and everything. And
And that's in the mandala book, Orderly Chaos.
well, I don't know if it's all in the mandala book. There's also another book that has come into mention by Rinpoche, by Dujam Rinpoche, Counsels from My Heart, where I'm 86, my husband's 87, and clearly, I mean, I'm in remission for 2 years, but clearly we're of an age where the Counsels from My Heart also has in it so much to do with preparation for death and what to do when you die and so forth and so on. So I'm just going to be quiet now. I've shared a lot and thank you for listening, I guess. And
Thank you, Janet. You did Counsels from My Heart, didn't we? Yeah, that was, yeah, we
did you
did
talk about
Counsels
that?
from My Heart
Okay.
right before this,
Yeah,
last spring.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
feel very humble, like to, excuse
Whatever
me.
it was.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
They were just clarifying when we did Counsels from My Heart, which is neither here nor there. It's been a minute.
So all these years that I've been in the Dharma, I think I still need to review like a student in graduate school or something, review. Review
Yeah.
the 5 this is and the 7 that's and the 8, but who has time, in a way.
Thank you, Janet.
Is Ricochet coming?
No,
No, that was,
Okay.
that was one time, yeah.
yeah, he said he might come next time he's in town, which I believe he
left,
said
he's-
would in a
Um,
month or so, but that would be again extraordinary. So no promises, but yeah,
I'm just gonna be here,
yeah.
yeah. And I haven't seen him at all this trip.
Yeah,
I've
I
been
think
out of town, but
he was here.
it's okay.
I think he's gone already. So.
Yeah,
Although I never get specifics yet.
well. The other thing that Faith asked about
Ah,
is that he comes up with blind faith and the intelligent faith.
yes, that was.
And blind faith, I had never come across either one of these two until I just read this. And blind faith is based on fantasy. But he's talking about the goal. And for some reason, I think a blind faith is intuition, that you intuit something, that you can intuit something that is actually, and he kind of says that the intelligent faith is a little stronger than the blind faith. He says, when you're reading here, and it's, and he says blind faith is looking for immediate results. Well, if you have, from my standpoint, if it's intuitive, if your faith is intuitive, then you are getting results. And then you take that, but I like the way that he puts together the intellect and the blind faith together, and you put them both together. And when you have the intellect and when you have the blind faith, then you can use your intellect, a scientific and critical way of looking at the path that you just saw. I mean, that's just my take on, whereas his take on the blind faith is that the worthwhile, there's a fantasy of how worthwhile the goal will be. But to me, that's conceptualizing something that is blind, which you're not, there's nothing to conceptualize. I mean, I don't know, I might be off the,
Well,
but I thought I'd just bring it out for a discussion.
yeah, I think I was a little confused with that because I find that I do use a lot of intuition, which to me is kind of like a blind faith. Like I don't know where I'm going right now, but I know that if I sit and just do, which I guess would be more of the intelligent faith, because that it's just more what's the word? I'm looking, it's more of the discipline factor because you need the discipline. But I do have blind faith that if I keep doing this, I go deeper and deeper,
Right,
and that over time, definitely my life has improved. And over time, I feel that maybe I'm getting closer to where I'm supposed to be. But I try not to define any more than that. Because I think it was in Chogyam Trungpa's book, Spiritual Materialism, that, he says that, let go of the idea of reaching enlightenment. You just
Right.
let go of it. And I'm like, oh, that's great. That's wonderful, because I was feeling so much pressure because I'm not where I need to be or want to be. Eliza, yay.
Yeah, so like A and B, I think the main difference that's jumping out is blind faith is focusing on the goal, and intelligent faith is focusing on the path.
right.
So
Yeah, and
the
yeah.
second is preferred because you're actually doing or being versus just idealizing some goal.
Right.
So the blindness maybe it's not intuition, maybe
No.
that's
Exactly, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Then-
more
then
like-
I'm throwing intuition. in
it's
the
more like
mix.
Jesus saved me.
Right, right.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's like
Okay.
if I throw something, into the water and I make it that far, then I'll be saved, or
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
that kind of.
Exactly. And actually a key point is in here in blind faith, it said, in blind faith, they are looking for immediate results,
Right,
which is the approach of blind faith. Well, that's what it is.
okay.
This is something we need to watch out for in ourselves. And I think even what you were, expressing about like blind faith, you think something's gonna happen, as you keep practicing, but
Yeah.
I would maybe put that in the other category,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Not in blind faith, because
Yeah.
it's like he was saying in here too, which is my understanding too of these two ideas, is that um in blind faith, we might not even bother to look for a stepping stone. Intelligent faith is a scientific, critical way, seeing a path that we are treading on. So you're on this path that
Yeah.
you're working with, that you're not, that you're, there's like these little stepping stones to get there, where, I mean, the way he's making the distinction, it seems like, is that the blind faith doesn't have those stepping stones, right?
Right.
Because you're just going right, for the
Yeah,
end result, the goal. And
Jesus
so-
died for my sins.
Well, things,
Yeah.
things along,
yeah.
without, taking it,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of breaking it down and working with, and actually even, it isn't here, the present moment. That was another point, with one of the different things is like, when you're in blind faith, you don't necessarily care about present moment.
Right,
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah,
Okay.
just this blind faith is based on a dream, or the fantasy of how good,
Oh, yeah,
the goal will be. Therefore,
Yes.
we're not concerned with what happens in the present moment.
right.
So that's, the thing with that, it's, yeah, so I think that's a
yeah, that's right.
a real distinction on what he's trying to say, the trap of the blind faith, the goal,
So is it, so when we think about that, all the things that are said that I don't understand, which is a myth, isn't it? Right? Because you've forgotten more about Buddhism than I know. So that's what, what I'm saying. So, if I accept something, like something that Rinpoche says, and I don't understand it, that's sort of a blind faith thing that you need to be careful with.
exactly.
Okay.
I think almost every teaching he gives, he talks about how the Buddha said, don't take my word for it.
That's key.
He almost
Mhm.
every
Mhm.
time says that.
Well, that's-
Don't take my word for it. Try it yourself.
Mhm.
And if it works, keep it. If it doesn't work, forget about it.
Mhm.
And it's almost a mantra.
And that's,
Because
yeah.
It's not up to them, it's up to us
Right.
individually.
Right. And I remember my first, experience in the Buddhist path, 25 years ago, or whatever. But it was like, I was so frustrated. I was like, you guys have, there's some answers. You guys have to take a stance on something, right? But, and I was like, and they would, the teachers, the high teachers and everything, they would never, necessarily give you, like a black and white answer. And when I was first just transitioning into working with these teachings, it was just really frustrating going, just give me an answer so I can just go with it, like be a vegetarian, be a this, be a that, and,
Right.
and just battle, for the first, like, I would say, maybe it only took maybe about 9 months, a year, finally the light bulb went on.
But that's a lot of frustration.
No, it was a lot. It was,
Yeah.
but basically the thing that they have, and this is in all the teachings, they have incredible confidence in humans, being able to, take the teachings and make it, their own. And of course it's a lot more, it's definitely a lot more work, right? And there's a lot more struggle, right, to get through through the stuff instead of just having someone make these, make somewhat simple kind of proclamations of
Like,
this is the way, this is the way.
here, Paul, do these 3 steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, I think culturally, it's one of the things that, I mean, I know it was, it was just a struggle, with that blind, sort of blind faith, where someone says something and you go, oh, okay, you said it, so that must be right.
I mean, well, and at the beginning, I'm a lot closer to the beginning, so I remember some more. I said that, hey, that's exactly. It's just spot on. It's like, and at first,
Are you a scientist too? I mean, you're kind of like
I'm
science.
not, I
oriented.
was more in, in IT, like technical stuff.
Okay. But that fits.
Yeah.
You're an engineer. Yeah.
and yeah, I have to understand it, or just. And there's some fundamental things I just don't get. And of course, sometimes when new stuff comes up, and then just more and more, there seems to be no end to it. But,
Yeah. I would agree with that.
and it's, well, I thought we were gonna do chapter 6. And one of the things about the next chapter that really, I just found it, the whole philosophical effort that they went through, in the beginning to try to figure out a human, it's just amazing. I mean, they really dug in and tried to figure your psyche out. And
They had a lot of time, like thousands of years. I think this started in
it's just impressive. I mean, it's like,
yeah.
that chapter 6 is like, ooh.
We're only doing the first part. We're doing that. I think we start with the outer world and then go to the inner world, I think that's how
Yeah, there's the outer,
I
there's
think
the
that's
outer
pretty
circle
much
and there's the
And I'm
inner.
like, this is an intense chapter, so we're just gonna do half of it.
We can do the 12. There's 12 outer circle.
Yeah, that's plenty.
That's a circle of life from birth until death, from the beginning that you awaken into the cosmos until you die.
Yeah.
But I have a question. Speaking of the circles, did you guys also have the same understanding? To me, it felt like we trigger it. So the whole cycle, like Yama does this and somebody else does this, like it goes from point A to B to C, and then there's conditions too. But it feels like we trigger everything.
It's your mind.
It's you, yeah.
It's your mind. Your mind is
Yeah, so
your mind is connected to everything, and everything that
You
has happened
put
is
us in this room.
no, that doesn't happen.
I'm still not clear on what my question exactly is. I'm trying to
So
ask the question. What I'm struggling with is, so I've read some other books, they're not religious books or Buddhist books, but they come from well-known psychologists, and maybe you guys have read those books too, but it talks about how our subconscious mind is so powerful, and we are actually creators when we're on earth as
Yeah.
human beings. We create, we have tremendous power, and not all of us know that. And it feels like it's karma. It's the same.
Karma is energy.
Later on, he talks of, he hits on a little bit of this in here, which I understand quite a lot, is that everything that we have in life is karma.
And we created it
And it's
ourselves.
it's created from lifetime to lifetime to
Yeah.
lifetime to lifetime. This karma goes with us.
Yeah.
And we create it over and over again. There's so many different facets, so many different variations of it. And we created karma right now just by talking to each other. And we can also have karma that has brought us here so that we can talk to each other. And all the afflictions, the suffering, etc. Buddha will say that it was caused by karma. It's your karma that you take with you that supposedly creates all this. So I mean, I'm getting a little bit ahead here on.
That's where I
Said a lot of that already.
Yeah, I mean, and so and I don't know how many different books that I've read when the teachers talk about karma, that it's the karma that all samsara, all life is created by everybody's karmas coming together. And this is kind of what creates everything that's going on here. So that's a concept has been put out there, but he says a little bit about that too, about
He says,
that.
he says some about that.
So a little bit about that, but there's many teachings on that, and that goes really very deep, beyond my understanding, beyond most people's understanding. So I guess not beyond mine, I know.
I want to loop back to what Paul and John were saying, because it points to what I've heard the Dalai Lama say. And I don't know if Rinpoche has said it too, probably he has, but he says Buddhism is not for everybody. And that's why we don't proselytize, because it's really difficult. And it's not, like, here's this little package neatly tied, and that's our teachings.
Well, that's
That's what
why
we
you
believe.
discuss to
Yeah,
make it easier.
Yeah, this is the sangha. This is what we're supposed to have.
I started
Yeah.
started looking for answers because I was upset. This was like years ago. Why people suffer? There's so much suffering that's just unfair, wrong. I know you're not supposed to think that, but that's how it began. This is just wrong. There has to be a reason for people suffering all the time. So then I got answers, and the like the sadness or whatever went away. But now, like, if we look at karma and how it's all complicated and we create everything, again, it feels like it's unfair. Nobody knows that we are doing everything.
That is he talks about this a little bit in here when he comes up with ignorance.
But
Especially on the
where
next-
did it come from? Like,
From our ignorance,
where did ignorance come
from not from being born.
Yeah.
But why would we be thrown into this system without any knowledge of how it operates and
Yeah.
how we can control it or do something about
Well,
it?
supposedly we knew the system, and we end up we knew how it operated, but then we started creating karma for ourselves. We started creating all these walls that he talks about here, all these things that are put up by your mind, that attachment and craving and all these, and desire and
Ignorance.
and ignorance, and from that ignorance it continues to, you'll hear the cycle that he talks about that in the next chapter, with the cycle of birth, old age, and death. It goes all the way around. You come to die, and you come right back to going again. That's the ignorance that takes you there, and until you can get out of that cycle. And that's what the Buddha was talking about, is that you can get out of that cycle by what we're doing here, supposedly. And maybe next lifetime, but I don't. I mean, that's.
Can I say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, visualize it.
I came in late. I'm really sorry. And I'm just picking up on the threads that are being talked about now. Yeah, I've been to a lot of teachings where people ask this, and many people who are coming to Buddhism have come from, even if they haven't been Christians, there's a Judeo-Christian kind of culture that says that we were perfect and then we screwed up. You know, the Eden story seems to filter in whether, whether you've studied it or not. We've all kind of soaked that up. But Buddhism doesn't say that. Buddhism says that it says that our awareness, our perfect awareness, has been there beginninglessly, and that all of these things that are blinding us to it are adventitious. They come and go. They're not, they're not a permanent thing. And that the reason why we don't see our true nature is because we have habits, beginningless habit, to believe what we see to be exactly as it is. So whenever we whenever we have a thought, we just believe that that thought is exactly as it is, rather than seeing that it is. Well, there's different ways of looking at it. Seeing that it's a manifestation of that natural mind. It's just a manifestation that comes and goes. It's I've heard it said that it's not so much that these things manifest, but that we grasp onto them as real. And once we do that, we start acting as if they're real. So, just a simple example that they often give is a rope coiled up on a path at dusk. And it looks like a snake. So someone walking along gets really afraid because they think there's a snake there. But they walk up closer and they find out it's not a snake, it's a rope. And so they're not afraid, of course. But I think there's lots of different takes on that story, but one of the takes on that story is that things appear to us, and because of karma, primarily, we have patterns that are like almost beginningless. We've been habituated to believing everything that arises to be just exactly as it is, and then following that story as if it's a real thing. We see it all the time. What people think is how they act, is what they do. If you have a belief that, I don't know, pick any belief. You have a belief that that there's a Santa Claus. And so there's a whole story that goes with that. You have packages and you open it and they're from Santa and so forth. And then you find out there is no Santa. I hope there's no children watching. And, and it changes everything. But I think the real point of why we're stuck in karma and why we're stuck in being ignorant of our true nature is because we just see everything as solid and permanent and real and unchanging. Right. All of that stuff that Rinpoche was just talking about. And that's why every time he comes, he talks about emptiness. Because understanding emptiness is a key that unlocks grasping at stuff and continuing the cycle of creating karma and experiencing it, and actually in experiencing the karma, we're creating more karma. So it seems like it's completely inescapable, but it's not inescapable. And one of the keys really is understanding, not just understanding, but getting a taste of emptiness. And
how do you do that?
Well, could I do a little thing to demonstrate?
Please.
Okay, well, you kind of have to go along in kind of a meditative thing, just letting go and just following what I'm saying. But, we all know what a mug looks like, or a coffee cup. And no one has to tell you that's a coffee cup because you immediately see it. And within a fraction of a second, you identify it as a coffee cup. That they say that there's a tiny fraction where you see something and it's not labeled like a child would see it, but the fraction of a second is just so tiny, you immediately recognize it and label it as a cup. Okay, so let's see about how that could be empty. One of the techniques to get an experience of emptiness is to look at the parts. So if you look at a coffee cup, it has a handle. But would you say that the handle is the coffee cup? You couldn't have a coffee cup if you just had a handle. And a coffee cup has a surrounding outer edge. If it just had a surrounding outer edge, would you say that's a coffee cup?
No.
No. So a coffee cup has a bottom. It has a disc on the bottom. But if you were to look at just that bottom, would you say the bottom is the coffee cup?
No.
No. And then it also has a rim. And it might have decorations on it. But none of those parts, you can't find coffee cup in any of those parts. And even when you put the parts together, it isn't a coffee cup until it's labeled as a coffee cup. It's empty of being a coffee cup. It's all of those parts put together that we recognize as a coffee cup, but there's no inherent coffee cup.
Yeah.
It's put together. And you could say the same thing about the room you're sitting in. Are the windows the library? I assume that's a library. Are
Yeah,
the
it is
windows
a
a
library.
library? No, you wouldn't say that. So you start to get a sense of when they say emptiness, they're talking about empty of inherently existing the way we are seeing it, the way we are grasping at it as real, permanent, and so forth. It's a collection of parts. And if you look at anything, even atoms, they say have parts, because an atom has a top and a bottom and a left and a right.
Nothing is solid.
Yeah,
Nothing is solid.
Even an atom.
yeah. There is nothing that is solid and inherent and permanent and singular and independent. Nothing.
And if anybody has missed seeing some of the footage from the newest and most incredible telescope, I think it's still available on the New York Times to look at. It's totally will blow your mind when you see it because, going out and out and out, but you can also go in and in and in, which they've also been doing, physicists. And I won't go on. You probably all know this already, but there's nothing solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rinpoche just recently said the only thing they can find is some energy, that there is no ultimate particle. So, yeah, so that looking at parts is a way to break down the idea that something is unitary and singular and independent. The cup is dependent on all of those parts. And without all those parts, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There was another one that I really, really liked, and I don't know if it'll come across, but It was about taking a journey. And they were talking about there is no inherent traveling because in order to travel, you have to take the first step. But the first step isn't getting there or traveling. But you can't, you can't get there without the first step. So that's almost like folk knowledge that in order to travel somewhere, it requires a lot of steps. And it could be actual footsteps, or it could be all the different steps that you have to take. But none of those individual steps is the travel. Getting on the plane is not, you couldn't say you have traveled to India just explaining that you got on a plane. There's a lot more to it. So traveling to India is not permanent, singular, individual, something that's solid. You say, I went to India, and that you have a solid idea of something happening. But if you break it down into the steps, there is no inherent travel to India. It's a combination of many, many different steps. So I hope that helps, because the point really of looking, for example, at the mug is to actually meditate on that for a little while, to meditate on how the cup is not the side, it's not the bottom, it's not the handle, but it doesn't exist without those things. But it doesn't inherently exist as those parts. Those parts are put together, and having been put together, we label it. We simply label it cup. And if you meditate on that, you get a sort of sense of the way we grasp onto things from labeling, that they become so solid and so permanent, and we pick them up, and we, of course, this is a solid cup. But if you break it down and analyze it like that, you eventually, through a little bit of meditation, get a taste of it, a taste of that cup not really being what we think it is. It's labeled, and it functions, and it's made of these parts, and it's certainly not permanent. It'll break one day, or they find pottery and stuff from ancient times. But if you can get a taste of that, then what's recommended is that you just rest in that. So you realize that the cup is empty of inherently existing the way we think it is. And then rest there. That's how I was taught originally to meditate on emptiness. And it's a way, if you can do it, look at different examples if that one doesn't resonate, until you can get a taste of releasing that grasping and that automatic labeling that creates a world that you're living in that is not exactly real. It's not exactly what you think it is.
Yeah.
That was so great. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for walking us through that. That was, nobody's taken the time to do that. I've heard, for me, before, I've heard teachers like Rinpoche say, where is the you? Is it in your finger? Is it here? Is it there? And so it's that same kind of thing, but this was really a nice pace and a very simple object. It was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Marcia.
another one that's incredible, and that's in Thich Nhat Hanh's book, it's the heart of understanding. And basically he goes through kind of a similar idea, but basically he says, look, at this piece of paper, and in this paper, you will see a tree, right? In this paper, you will see clouds. In this paper, you will see rain, So, I mean, it was much more eloquent, but the book is excellent for, um, the understanding of, and he kind of walks through in the whole book and fairly, ideas that you can really relate to on it. And that's a great meditation, just even reading like from that book, how he breaks down, like, he actually said, from this book, you're holding in your hands, what is this all, what basically had to come together, to have this book in your hand, so it's very, I mean, it can be a little bit subtle, but that's where meditation can come in too.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah. I've heard that same analogy used with the human body. Is your hair you? Is your nose you? Is your fingers you? I mean, where are you? I mean, is your knee you? Is your legs you? I mean, it goes all the way through the whole human body like that. Is that, like, where is you? And it's very hard to find you with all those different parts.
Yeah.
That was just another analogy that I've heard.
Yeah, that's a good one. And the recommendation then is when you get that kind of sense of, wow, this body isn't really what I thought it was.
That's for
Then
sure.
you rest with that and meditate on that. And that's where you start to open the door to emptiness.
Yeah.
You get that experience, and it's the experience that you settle into. Otherwise, it's just kind of an analysis, which doesn't necessarily lead to any understanding of emptiness. They're all meant to, that the example of Thich Nhat Hanh and the example of searching for your body for, where am I in my body, are meant to give you a taste of the experience that you can settle into and meditate on again and again.
Yeah. And another piece of confusion that we seem to working with, and that is, and when we started off, we said, picture this cup in your mind, right? Well, you have these concepts, right? Like a cup, and then you have an actual cup in front. And sometimes the concepts that are in your mind, don't match the seemingly reality thing that's in front of you, right? So you get conflicted with, come on, that's not a cup,
Right.
Give me a break, or that's not an elephant, like the whole thing with the elephant, right? Where the guy, he's feeling the elephant's foot, and he's only feeling the foot. He's like, this isn't an elephant, but he's only feeling that part.
Right.
He's got the concept of his mind of this elephant he should be fixing. So
Well, I would imagine, I mean, using your example there, I would imagine the English Tea Party where they have the elegant little cup there, and then the guy with the big coffee mug, and they're both saying, "Well, that's a cup," and the English Tea Party said, "That's not a cup," and the other guy said, "Well, no, that's not a cup."
Yeah.
no, exactly. I mean, it's interesting. In sometimes we don't even we're not even aware, obviously, that we get them mixed up, right, in our minds, because we have this concept that's in our mind, and it gets mixed up with the phenomenon, so-called seemingly, that's out there.
And that's what happens daily in your conversations with people. You're talking about something, and their mind is completely taking what you're saying differently than what you meant. I mean, we all are operating in our own way of formulating the world, and that's a perfect example. And another example of how things are really empty of inherently existing, because if things existed inherently and truly and solidly, we would all see things the same way. But obviously we do not.
And that was one of the things I wanted to follow up with. I think these are such great metaphors for why maybe we are in this predicament of ignorance, constant ignorance, because of that attachment to the way ego experiences something. And people will kill each other over that
Yeah.
difference,
Yeah.
that my perception is different from your perception.
But
But it's all,
all the religious wars were like that.
yeah, well, and we can look at any war now, I think, and see that,
Excuse me.
There's-
and people suffering. To go
There's-
back to what Ashanta was talking about. Yes, what?
I'll just quickly share again something from my experience in classroom teaching children, and also with the business I have been running for 25 years with employees, and also social work before that, and having a family and all that. The importance of really realizing how much control is an issue for so many people, control. And then what is it that you can do to loosen up this control issue, to let people learn to work with the different aspects of things, like the concept of the diamond, the many facets of anything you're working with, and how do you work with that? And so I think we need to really look into that as right now is never more important. Different questions, different types of questions, how important that is, and how we are so grasping for our own need of control, or our own need of what we think is going to solve things. If we don't relax, and I'm right now needing to remember to breathe as I'm talking about it, because it raises anxiety, because there's so much to be for in my business, in my family. I can get anxious about that, to be ready to die, to really feel that, okay, I've done the very best, And I think I mentioned that just because anxiety is arising when we're grasping for what we really are hoping to achieve by a conversation. And I'm glad that we're all here, because I like listening to everybody give a different aspect or a different angle of things. And I think I'll just be quiet now.
I have a question for you, Janet.
Okay.
In Buddhist terms, what would you say, or karmic terms, as we're reading this, what is control?
Really a good question. That is really a really, really good question.
Well, because I have an answer, but I don't know if you would agree with it.
Let's hear yours.
I think it's attachment.
What?
Why would you, without attachment, why would you worry? Why would anyone worry about controlling anything?
You want a certain outcome. You're
Yes,
clinging to it.
because
You'll do
and you
anything.
mentioned grasp.
Exactly that.
I really feel like it's attachment.
Of course it is. And of course it is. And it's also other things. Okay, beyond attachment, is there something
Okay.
behind it, or is there something behind that? I'm just asking. I would have to think on that and really reflect on it. Fear of what? Um, and really hearing. So what I try to do, and I feel like I'm beginning to succeed after 25 years in the business, when we meet as a group, is really for everyone to feel that they can speak, like you are having everyone speak, and to establish what we're doing right here, feeling safe, feeling Now, if we had to accomplish something, okay, so we're accomplishing something, but what if we had something practical to accomplish? Then, I'm going to stop talking. And so there are different kinds of questions and there are different kinds of responses. And trying to educate ourselves about looking into ourselves, looking into our own. We can ask ourselves different kinds of questions. We can think of different aspects of our anxiety or our fear or our anger, our frustration, and look into ourselves and see, especially when it arises with someone close to us, like a wife or a husband or a child or an employee, look into ourselves. And then what do we have to let go of in order to listen better? In order to, if it's a teaching situation where you're teaching someone that they are important and they are to be listened to and they are valued and you want them to speak and you want them to know that they can ask different kinds of questions. And what are those different kinds of questions? And then what arises from that kind of interaction within especially a circle of people can be quite surprising and quite wonderful. And that's it.
Thank you, Janet.
Our topic is making me think of what Rinpoche says, and related to your question from earlier. What I'm going to say doesn't answer your why, but what he says is the suffering, it's self-induced. Your suffering is coming from yourself, and of course at the beginning I had no clue what he was talking about. But then as Christina gave some teaching, she's like, well, you should try this. And judging is one of the big things that I tried to improve. Well, so if you take on something like that you are habituated with and you can improve it, you will feel less suffering. So it just, as you work on something and you feel that, you can, it's sort of like it's evidence that that's true, what they're saying.
No, that's true for sure. Still unfair though. All these beings don't know what caused it or they caused it themselves and they're stuck for eternity, it seems. It's not fair.
This is not to gloss over that in any way, shape, or form, but when I don't know if I was about your age, but I was much, much younger, right? And I was just kind of overwhelmed, always trying to change the world and make it better. And it was so unfair. And I couldn't, I just couldn't. And I so relate to that. And so I'm driving along in my little bug, and suddenly this voice from nowhere says, there's ultimately justice in the universe. And I'm like, where did that come from? And I told my mom about it, and she's like, oh, that's bullshit. But it still made me feel better in my head. And it made, and I still think of that now. I'm like, is there ultimately justice in the universe? Because that's so important to me. That maybe justice isn't the value. Maybe it's, an openness to others and compassion. Yes.
Love and compassion are two things that are in the universe.
Yeah.
Those are universal. And those are things that you cannot find, you cannot hold in your hand, but they are there. And Dalai Lama and every true Rinpoche, every true teacher, and in all religions, we'll talk about love as being the basis.
Yeah.
And you've heard that everywhere. And I truly believe love and loving kindness and compassion are the two if you can understand loving kindness and compassion, many other doors. If you're filled with loving kindness and compassion, other doors will start opening in your path as you meditate on those two.
And you can only do the best you can do. You can't control other, other people. You can influence other people by being a better person yourself, by treading the path. And I believe that. I mean, if you're on the path,
If you're on the path, you're going to be an influence of everybody you talk to.
yes,
I mean, if you truly get on the path and loving and kindness and compassion comes up within you, everybody you talk to, you are subconsciously putting out energy, positive virtue in helping your own karma. Coming back to karma again.
with 10, and I still think about this, like when I make my dedications and all, because it really does concern me, like breathing in the suffering of the world, or, Tonglen.
Totally.
I think that's really important and helpful for you if you're feeling that way. It's,
I've been doing that.
yeah, do you find it helpful?
I mean, it's just the same state after meditation. I don't think it's any different if I had a regular sitting or Tonglen sitting.
All of it is helpful. All of it is in the path.
And as you,
But I do this, dedicate the mirror every time.
there are like 10.5 or 11 billion just of human beings, and then there are all these other sentient beings.
Mhm.
And so you're only you for a while. For a while.
Maybe it's not so bad. There are all these enlightened beings. They're helping too.
They're helping you. Yes, they are.
All the guides.
Every time you pray to one of the gurus, they're helping you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's for sure.
I look at that everybody has their own path. And, like if you have a friend who's devout Catholic, it's like, well, that's a good path, because if they're following, their religion, they're doing good things, right? So that's a good path.
Yes, that's what the Dalai Lama says that all the time
Yes.
about all of this.
Yes.
It's right on. I mean,
Yeah. Thank you for
And I
bringing
just-
that up, John.
That's just kind of how I look at it. It's one of the weird things about this Buddhism to me is what you had mentioned earlier about you're not proselytizing. They don't want you doing that, and they tell you don't if you have a religion, keep it. Don't switch to Buddhism. Keep your religion. So
Yeah.
they're very different in that regard compared to other religions where they're trying to bring you in
And the word itself, religion, is a concept. You're attaching to some concept when you should be open, right?
Well-
Like accept everything.
Buddhism isn't really a religion,
Yeah.
because there's no God, and you don't have to believe this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, so there was something else. What is
Not-
the,
I guess I kind of like, well, when you say him, like the whole God thing, and I kind of look at it, and this is, biased up to what Rinpoche has said, that, you don't know that there may be a God. It's just that Buddhism believes that's not the end. If there is a God, okay, but we believe there's more to it than that. It's like, so,
Dispute consciousness to me.
Yeah,
Like it's the same thing, and it's what's that book? The the Tibetan book of living and dying.
Living and dying,
He said the same thing. It's just different words. Consciousness, the source. The last time we were talking about the source.
Yeah.
Well, we said emptiness, and then all of us like don't use the word emptiness because it's not empty. I think that's God. Same thing.
The parallels, so that's something I noticed as I went along, is like because I was born or raised Catholic, not super strong, but we went to church a lot. But there's a lot of parallels between the religions.
yeah.
They all say the same thing. Like the main points,
Yeah,
they overlap.
Like the virtues are the same.
And having the basis of, like, again, in fact, love and compassion is the basis of almost all religions.
Yeah, and how something is keeping track of everything. They still call God, but it's really you.
Yeah, it is really you. It's your Buddha nature.
The Buddha nature.
The Buddha nature is what's in everybody.
And Rinpoche talks again and again, almost every time, it seems to me. God is this concept of being out there, and all powerful and eternal. And so that's eternalism. And so there's nothing in our experience that supports the concept of eternalism, like that there's something that has inherent existence. It's all kind of flowing and changing and, from moment to moment to moment. And that's hard for me to get my head
And
around.
that's the impermanence of
Yeah.
just even life on the mind flow from second to second to second. Myself 2 words ago is not the same self as I am now. I'm continuously being here. I don't know how to put it. I don't understand.
Yeah, I've heard, a lot of advanced teachers using the word, so Buddhists aren't theists, they're not atheists, but, put them in a so-called conceptual classification of non-theists, which is, not one extreme or the other, I mean, I grew up a Catholic too, but I know for me, and I think with a lot of people that I've had, it basically it complements. I mean, I have a much more even appreciation for other religions. I don't know, I mean, it's just I just appreciate it now,
This gave me more understanding of my religion.
Mhm.
Ironically,
Mhm.
the things I couldn't grasp, I read this stuff and then it makes sense.
Mhm.
I have answers.
Mhm.
So I don't think there's any conflict.
Right.
Yeah.
No, there's,
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you go, and I know, I mean, people you've met who who either become Buddhist, study Buddhism or whatever. I mean, they come from wide range. I mean, you can have Muslims, Christians. I mean, and it's just it's pretty vast as far as like how I guess open it is.
Yeah.
But then again, then you have to kind of do the work to kind of piece, and that's another thing is that take the things that you understand and go with them. The things that you maybe disagree with, just leave those. Like you don't believe in reincarnation, you don't believe it, but the things that what you find helpful along the path, take those in. The things that you're like, I don't know what this is or whatever, just working with it.
Because it comes around again.
Yeah, it comes out, yeah.
over and over.
Over and over, and I guess, yep.
And still got some fundamental things to work out.
Well, hopefully we live long enough to work out bunches of things.
There's always a second chance, third chance,
Yeah.
fourth chance, 50th chance.
I like that.
So
So one of the things, we're welcome to continue on in this vein, but I'm wondering if question 11 would be helpful. If you review, and also in preparation for the next chapter, let's review the formation of ego through the 5 skandhas. And then you go to G and the outline. Karma is generally dependent on objectification, my existence, and my projections. So, how we, and maybe it even starts before that. Yeah, dissatisfaction leads to questioning, which leads to the path,
Is
embryonic
this in your
in
thing
the
that you
outline.
said? Your outline, okay.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
said
So,
question 11 and
yeah, it's like reviewing the formation of ego through the 5 skandhas. But I do think that it really starts in G. The process of freezing the space
it
and
starts,
becoming
you said it starts,
fascinated with it is the first skanda. And so that could happen, as you're a baby and, like all this stuff is going on around you. And um, you start to freeze things and create labels for things as you develop as a human being. And so that's that reason why we're taking apart a coffee cup, because we think that a coffee cup is inherently a coffee cup unless we really examine it. The process of freezing the space and becoming fascinated with it is the first skanda, the skanda of form. So let's see, form. This is in the Heart Sutra, and I was going to pull that out and forgot. Form, feeling, formation, perception, consciousness. Did I forget one? I probably did, but he goes through them all. And I thought it was really helpful. And we want to freeze the I because I exist. I am what I am. And we are attached to that idea of I, which is where ego comes in, which is where all our ignorance comes in, and
So
it's through the attachment. So
then number 3,
number
sorry,
3,
for the question.
yes,
So where it says the process of freezing the space, here space is not emptiness, right? It's referring to like the current
this
thing.
space,
Yeah,
this, yes, this
Small
space, this space,
small things,
yeah.
objects, or me.
Well, I'm sorry, you brought up the Heart Sutra and it reminded me, when we were reciting that over and over and over again on the Thursdays. And she had me read a book called The Heart Attack Sutra. And that was pretty helpful for that, because that isn't what you think it is. The Heart Sutra is very deep
It's everything.
and really misleading if you, like when I read it, I was asking questions and like, no, that's not, it's just like, no. Like, well, when I read it, one of the things I remember was like, it sounds like it's written for normal people, when you read it and you don't have any Buddhist background, that's how it reads. No,
Is that the one by the Dalai Lama?
it isn't.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have it at home, but it's, my house is a little bit of a mess with boxes everywhere from
Yeah.
doing. But if I have it, I could bring it in and see who the author is.
Okay, that'd be great. But yeah, form is the first, the skanda of form, the first stage in the development of ego. Because, or maybe you're just coming into focus and you're seeing your mom and your mom is talking, and what is this space that is talking? What is this? And then you start to be told what all of these things are, and you start to attach to all of its ideas. So that's how I'm reading it, and please. you know,
Yeah,
correct me.
the young person,
Yeah.
the mother going along, and the kid sees the duck out there in the pond, doesn't know what the duck is. Mommy, what's that? That's a duck. It goes quack, quack. And the kid goes, okay.
Yeah,
And now I have a label for that. So the next time I see that bird on the pond, but he sees another bird, and it's just a formless bird. There's no connection to it, but he sees a duck and he's already been told that it's a duck, and that's the beginning of getting labeling for everything that we say.
and a really important label is no. And this is no, and that is no, and that is no, 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 no.
Just one question, so you were asking, so with the Heart Sutra, right, when you brought that up, was the question asked? Who wrote that, or was it like,
Yeah,
was it who wrote it?
the book
The
on
book
hearts.
on heart, oh, who wrote that book that you're talking, the heart of,
Yeah.
heart attack?
It's called
Okay.
a heart attack.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, who wrote that book? Yeah.
And it's not it's a little,
Yeah, because I've read one too, and it was by the Dalai Lama. So
I
Oh,
don't think this was, but
yeah,
it was a
it probably wasn't because so many people have
commentary written book,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. So I would be really interested to know. So that's the basic, and the next karma develops 3 strategies for dealing with the second skanda of feeling. If I hear no, I feel aggression, passion, or indifference. And I would feel, in my case, passion, and like I've been like knocked down a few pegs, and I would have a lot of feeling about it.
Yeah, and one key point in this
Yes.
is that feeling here obviously is quite primitive and quite different from feelings in the sense of
Oh.
emotion. That's
Okay.
really key, because when I first learned this stuff, I was, and they were saying feelings, I was getting that really confused.
See, I didn't know that.
And it has nothing to do with your emotions, feelings. It has to
Okay.
do with your sensations.
Oh,
And that's actually
like
key.
heart.
Exactly. And that's key.
Okay.
Even I was anyway.
Okay, that's the body, yeah, that's the body.
That confused me for
That's like
4
a-
years.
Yeah.
Getting, yeah.
Your nose, your taste.
Now, and you can think,
Who says? Who says that?
This was to Robert Thurman, actually,
Oh,
the
Robert
author,
Thurman,
right?
sure.
So I was in a retreat with him,
Yeah.
Whoa.
and this was maybe about a couple of years ago. Anyway,
Wow.
but he's like, he was just so cool. Because he's done all these translations, right? And he's like, dang. And the way he's kind of informal, he's like, I should have said sensation. I shouldn't have said feeling.
Oh,
In his translation. And then he went on. But anyway, that's just that was.
I have a
Exactly.
question. I have a
Your
question.
body feeling, that's funny, that's what's one of the.
That makes sense.
But you see feelings all the time in the Buddhist, translations, probably based on when he was doing
Yeah.
stuff back,
But it does say here, we've developed 3 strategies, all of which establish territory. The second skanda of feeling. I guess you would establish territory through that physical,
Yeah.
right.
sensation of
Yeah,
the
like
world.
this feels good. It feels,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
And we can,
ask a quick question.
yeah.
So I don't know your name, sir. Paul, were you saying that Robert Thurman said that aggression, passion, and indifference are not the energy of emotion, rather they are physical sensation in the body?
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm basically saying that,
This is about the second
this is the second skanda, and basically just, I'm just gonna say, the quite different from the feelings and a sense of emotions. Like, how you have feelings emotionally?
Yeah.
That's not what this is talking about.
Got it.
I mean, now the thing is, in all of the teaching that I've seen, when they teach the 5 skandhas, they do use that word feelings, right? They use that. You see it all over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But really the idea, is more sensation.
The physical sensation.
Yeah.
You're trying to establish, is this for me? Do I like it? Do I
Exactly,
dislike it?
exactly.
Or am I just?
Exactly. That,
Okay.
and that's,
It kind of makes
So
it
it's just the second skanda.
more fundamental.
exactly, it's more fundamental
Then
than the
you
next level.
see,
Deeper.
and then you
And so
touch.
the
I need
passion,
to read it. I
aggression,
need to
and
read the text, and it's my fault because I haven't had time to read it this week.
Oh,
So
that's okay.
yeah, but so there does seem to be something here like it. I've never. So you're making a distinction between energy and sensation? Is that what?
Between emotions
Well,
and,
what
there's two
are
kinds of
emotions?
feelings.
What are emotions? What are
There
they?
are emotions, but we're only on the second skanda.
This
What
is
are
very
they?
primitive at this point.
We're still at the primitive level.
Energy. I think emotions are energy. And
Yeah, but we're not talking about,
We're talking about body feeling like taste, smell, hearing, eyes, and then your body has its own consciousness, a feeling, and that's the feeling we're talking about.
and the
and
energy moves
Shunpa
through the
says there
body,
are three ways of
And then your
feeling:
mind is your
and
say.
it moves
aggression,
through,
passion, or indifference.
right,
Or
energy moves through the body and the mind. It's a movement of, okay, I've just, okay, enough.
okay, well, maybe bring it up again next week. I'd like to, I hate rushing. Maybe I'm rushing here.
Well, we're almost out of time.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. It would be nice to get through the five skandhas is all I'm thinking.
Okay, quiet.
If that's okay. Um, and then he explains the ignoring qualities, active ignorance is more active ignorance than the initial solidifying process. So you can just ignore, um, whatever the sensation is. Passion is grasping and eating up, magnetizing, grasping. So what aggression, experience of poverty involving basic speed. So I'm going to have to think of that about that too in the context of sensation, because it's different than I was thinking about it. Ego remains underdeveloped and reinforces itself through perception. Self-centeredness is the base. So this is the third skandha. Self-centeredness is the basis of perception. This is a further extension of ego and our perceptions. So we've been, like not knowing what things are. We're starting to label. We're starting to get sensations and react to them in different ways. And now we're into perception where it's all about us, me. The fourth skandha, development of concepts through intellect. Intuition has largely been used for the previous skandhas. So, he uses labeling here, naming, labeling, categorizing. So actually that first skandha was more primitive than I made it. The fifth skandha is the joining of intellect and ego, what we call consciousness, and includes all thought processes and feelings. Are these the emotion feelings here?
That,
I would think they are. It is.
so,
Emotions can become painful because we are uncertain of our relationship.
and that's what it's.
Yeah, well, it
Okay.
says here,
Emotions probably in the fifth skandha.
Okay.
yeah, it says the emotions consist of elements of feeling, intuition, and a certain element of intellect that validates the emotions.
Okay, so that's interesting. I mean, that, yeah.
And it says the basic me can feel overpowered by emotions, conflict, unease. The pain from emotions is also a part of consciousness.
Yes.
Subconscious thought, daydreams, and everyday thoughts are the army of ego, which keep us constantly busy and going from thought to thought and action to action. So the five skandhas, and in the Heart Sutra, it says there is no form, no feeling, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, you know, that
Yeah.
Rinpoche always talks about. Let's see. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, but we have already created this vast, rich world that's all in our minds.
Yep.
That messes us up. So I think maybe that's a good place to stop.
That'd be a good place to start messing up our minds.
Yeah, messing up our minds, yeah. But the
Already.
Heart Sutra, it actually related to this chapter in particular. So let's do the World Peace Prayer. Thank you so much for this rich discussion, informative, and it is 8:27. We have time.
Yep.
In the
The world
world
in general, and in this nation, may not even the name, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtuous qualities, merit, and prosperity greatly increase. And may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly rise. In the world in general and in this nation, may not even the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtuous qualities, merit, and prosperity greatly increase. And may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly arise. In the world in general and in this nation, may not even the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtuous qualities, merit, and prosperity greatly increase. And may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly arise. By this merit, may all beings gain admission, and thus defeat the neurosis and negative actions which are the enemies. From the turbulent waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of cyclic existence, may all beings be liberated.
Thank you, everyone. This was great.
Bye all.
And hope to see you next week, okay? And we'll be discussing chapter 6.
Is it next week or 2 weeks?
It's actually next week.
That was, it's September 8th down there.
Yeah, so the schedule is messed up and I've got to talk to Kylie about it.
Because you had August 2nd in here.
Yes, yeah, it's messed up.
Yeah.
We are meeting
So-
next week.
Yeah, we are meeting next week and I'll send out an email and I'll see if we can get the schedule changed online. I don't know. You know, by the time next week rolls around, otherwise we start missing because of Labor Day.
Right. Well,
Yeah, okay. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone's
Bye.
input.
Thank you.